So we've just come up off the River Aire, Bank Dole junction, and we're on the Aire Calder. This is the little arm that runs up to the lock from the main navigation, and it is bleak. Oh yeah, you remember in the last video of all that pollution?
Mm-hmm.
A couple of people commented that there used to be some tar works on that site just next to the lock, so they think it's probably some residue from those days.
Yeah, that would make sense. It was definitely a petrochemical smell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, this whole area, you know you're going to Selby when you turn up and you're like, I am in a chemical wasteland.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're on the river and it's fine, but there's just this few hundred feet of, I don't know if it used to be a power station or what, but there's this huge amount of kind of land in need of serious reclamation.
Yeah.
And so yeah, the bubbling up and welling up of the chemicals was like excellent. Another chance for the canal to light on fire.
Yeah, and you know, on the River Aire it is very like wildlife-y, but
not so much at Bank Dole.
Yeah, and Bank Dole feeds the River Aire, so
I mean, this is an area that really reminds you of the fundamental fact that this was a means of getting cheap fuel to and from large amounts of industry, you know, and power generation and everything. And the whole region kind of feels it, you know, like it's weird how so many of the canals can feel like rural vacation, but then you get to some places and it's like, oh yeah, right, it was an industrial bypass.
Yeah. And you see that here with these big boats and the big factories, and
it's really got a sense of working canal still.
Which is nice, but maybe if it was cleaner it would be nicer.
Well, it just makes you think, you know, like I'm often kind of, you know, going like, you know, people are like, oh, is it really nice to live on a boat? I'm like, yeah, it's lovely. There's ducks and there's geese and, you know, there's fish in the water, and then I'm like, but they wouldn't have been historically.
Yeah,
you know.
But I also think, like, you know, with the canal system crumbling as it is, if industry could find a way to use it, you've always mentioned self-driving barges for delivery, like, you know, it would have a future.
Yeah, I mean, not so much industry as
delivery.
Yeah, like services and everything. Like, I just, you know, I keep wondering why humanity hasn't realized that there's a lot of products we don't need.
Super quick.
Yeah, super quick. We don't. Not only do we not need them super quick, we don't need them in the 40 days it takes for something to travel with bunker oil from China to, you know, San Francisco or whatever. You're looking at a product that it doesn't matter if it arrives 5 years after it left the factory, right? So why not let it be on a sail or let it be on a barge, you know, and just kind of move it as is. As and when, you know, yeah.
So we've just come through Knottingley, and this bit of the canal is actually really lovely. Like
tree-lined corridor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you come around the corner and there's a big flour mill. But it's funny how some people have houses that back onto the canal and they really embrace it, and other people just seem to ignore it.
You know, it'd be nice. I wonder if we ever get into a situation in which people buy these and turn them into, you know, single-family residences.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to have a flour mill, you know, just, I don't know.
It'd be quite a big bedroom you'd have.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, really tall ceilings, right?
Cost a fortune to heat, you'd be freezing.
Oh, well, that's true. But by that point, the global warming thing will have raised the temperature of England to roughly that of Abu Dhabi. Wrong one. I don't know, but I assume.
I think that's police up on that bridge, but I don't know what's happening. See, these houses back onto the canal, but they've got a big fence and then just this wasteland between the fence and the canal. I mean, I guess some people have small children and the canal could be dangerous, but there's ways around that. We're still enjoying the water and the wildlife. And these are potential moorings all the way along here, and I have a feeling we got stuck here at some point. I can't remember why.
Oh yeah, well, when we were coming through, the first time we came through this region, there was a like oil tanker somebody was converting. Well, not an oil tanker, but like a big carrier that somebody was converting into a liveaboard.
Mm-hmm.
And it was moored up on that side there. And we were here in a flood. So,
was it a flood?
Yeah, so like all of the locks were shut down for a while.
Because this is a cutting between... so we're on the Aire Calder Navigation, and we just left the River Aire, and this is a cutting, and in ahead we're going back on the River Aire. And that's what the Aire Calder does, kind of all the way.
Yeah, you basically have this canalized section where there's a horseshoe bend in the river, where it had the old power station was sort of in front of us here. And, this is sort of the canalized refuge between these two locations where the natural river just bends through.
And this is one of the huge locks. I seem to remember there were some issues with it, but I can't remember what.
I don't remember there being any problems with it.
Maybe I just imagined that. But it's so funny, like when you've been on, narrow canals where the locks are barely bigger than the boat, and then you go in here, you can swim around.
What's funny is when you realize that this used to, you used to drive what was for this canal a narrow boat into here. This was a one boat lock. And it was like, you'd go through, you'd be a big coal, lighter, and then you'd go down and you'd continue on. That was the narrow beam. It was just the narrow beam for a wider canal.
But these locks are electronically operated, so that's nice. You're not winding there. Do you remember what happened after this lock?
No.
So you're on the right hand side here, and the lock landing is way ahead on the left, but I don't know why they've got the control panel on the right hand side, and you've still got George up there. So I pull out and there's nowhere for me to get you back on board. So I stop at this ladder, and we didn't film any of it, but I stop at the ladder, and then I'm scared of lifting George down, so I climb out, and then you climb down this ladder here, and then I pass George down to you, and then I climb back on.
Oh yeah, right. And we could have just closed the lock, walked across, and gone over to the landing.
Which is, it's a little way ahead, but you can't even see it from here, and there's no kind of indication.
No, it was really, it was non-obvious.
I think it's under that bridge ahead.
But I think there's also something off to the right from the boat's perspective here, sort of behind where I was standing, where there's another little jetty over there, but...
I don't remember that.
There's like a little floating pontoon thing, but it was out of action. And I don't know if it was ever to be used for putting crew on or off or anything, because it didn't look like it had done very well.
Obviously changed the battery, is it?
Did a battery change, and we've now figured out how to get George back on the boat. I wonder how the GoPro feels about things like that. Just we're sitting there going, what are they doing back there? Why can't we move?
But yeah, there's the ladder that we just had all the excitement on.
I mean, you never know. A few generations from now, they're going to have an AI in the GoPro making decisions about what to shoot and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I refuse to film this.
This is ugly.
That man is not allowed to be in this pornography.
See, that's under the bridge. That's where there's bollards to get back on. Lovely old bridge. And yeah, back on the Aire. But this part of the Aire has got quite a different feel to the Aire that we were on in the last video. This is much more industrial and less kind of rural and agricultural.
See, the funny thing here is when you realize that, directly in front of us here would have been the massive cooling towers of the power station.
Well, it was the last time we came through.
Yeah, but it's like I can't remember it.
I can't remember exactly which point it is, and there are still remnants of it.
Well, they're still destroying it. They're still taking, because when we were here last time, or the first time I should say, we passed through here, and we went past the coal loading section. That whole thing was fully intact, and now there's vehicles that are pulling it to pieces.
And I remember there was a big old loading bay that the boats were to drive into.
Yeah, and now there's almost none of it left.
And I can't remember what this one's called, but I'm sure it's the one that my granddad helped design turbines for. So yeah, there's a bit of it left, potentially.
Yeah, well, that right there would have been, that whole view would have just been filled with this power station, and it's just gone.
And George is totally uninterested.
All to become a bunch of flats, I'm sure.
Or something.
Racetrack, possibly.
Is that the motorway? Or the arterial road?
I still think it's wrong to call it, if you've got motorway and arterial road, where's a Venus Road? Because if you've got an arterial road, you need something to take that traffic back. That's got to be a Venus system.
I see where you're going.
Because if all you have is arteries, what you are doing is working towards
something.
Bleeding out.
A nice, very rural mooring there. And over there, there's lots of kind of pools, and I think they're on the site of coal mines. So I guess boats would go into these pools off to the side of the river to load up. And now there's just old mine.
I remember reading that all of this to that side that you can see there, all of that is rewilded.
Oh, really? That's nice.
Like it's like a large portion of this has been replanted to try and, I guess, turn it into like a little nature area or something.
Recover from the years of...
Because this was an extremely bleak landscape.
Well, this part of it's not bleak now, from the river at least. It looks lush and there's quite a bit of wildlife. But unfortunately, it's quite a long stretch of river where there's no moorings, so you kind of have to do it in one. Although, having said that, we just saw the boat that had found a wild mooring.
Always anchor.
That's true.
Admittedly, your insurance might stop working immediately after doing so.
Yeah, and after seeing the boat on the Selby in the last video.
Yeah, but see, that was the problem of not using an anchor. If that boat had anchored in place, it would have been fine. No, it was because it tied to the shore. Was that little fishing boat?
Yeah.
He looked like he was having a...
It's very peaceful out here.
Yeah. I was jealous isn't the word, but I was kind of...
Yeah, you're not a fisher person.
No, would never be an angler, but at the same time it looked like a decent use of an afternoon if you're...
I want to get away from it all.
Yeah, and you never know, you might catch a really big fish and basically you've got a motor now.
Fishing from a boat always seemed nicer than fishing from the bank.
Yeah. When I did fishing as a kid, it was almost exclusively to pull in goldfish that people had let loose into the lake, so...
What did you do with them then?
Try and put them back in the lake.
Huh.
Although the ones with the big eyeballs were so disturbing if you pulled one of those out of the water.
There's another one of those pools from the old mines. I'm surprised you didn't make us drive in there and have an explore, but I imagine they're probably quite silted up now.
I wonder how much subsidence is happening in this area. Slowly but surely, the river getting bigger and bigger as the mines slowly get filled in.
I'm always anxious of rivers, but then whenever I get on them, there's so little movement of the water, especially here, that it might as well be a canal.
Yeah, I've never quite understood where your anxiety comes from.
Well, I think it's, there could be flood at any point, or not.
Unless something really catastrophic happens, you don't suddenly go, hey, we're 6 feet higher,
I guess there's got to be a bit of rain first.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like there's usually,
but the rain,
barring meteorite, there's usually a warning.
The rain could happen upstream, couldn't it, when not know about it?
But you'd be, if you're talking something that's suddenly going to be a torrent, like a flash flood sort of thing, okay, admittedly, if you're close to the place where the disaster begins, you've got some serious problems. But if you're, if enough rain happens on the watershed that it's going to become a problem for you on the Aire Calder, you're going to be aware of it from people being like, Scotland has flooded.
So coming up to the lock, this is at Castleford, and like 5 years ago, I never would have been the one to volunteer to drive in. But
you've become brave.
I've become that person. I was just bored of doing looks, I think.
See, it's funny how the whole time you were like, locking is harder than
I still think locking's harder. That's why I'm enjoying driving so much now.
I think they each have their own challenges.
I think driving's easier until there's an issue, and then it's like a side wind or something.
Yeah.
But generally, on a calm day, it's much easier. Just get to chill out, chat to other boaters in the lock, if there are any.
But it can all go pear-shaped really, really quick, right?
Yeah,
That's
you
the
do have to
problem.
be alert. But then you have to be alert when you're on the bank. And I think when you're doing the locking, like I'd always worry more about you because I wasn't in control of the boat, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I find there's an anxiety to both, right? Like when I'm up there doing locks, since we sort of swapped positions, when I'm up there doing them, I'm always a bit, am I making sure I'm communicating? I know when you're down there, you don't really have a lot of control over how fast. I mean, these are electric, it goes at a speed, but, like manual locks and everything, it could be easy for the person up there to raise the lock too fast and all of a sudden you're banging back and forth.
Well, that's the thing with the manual locks, especially because every single one behaves differently, even when you've got two that are built the same, on the same canal, a mile apart, or...
Yeah, to the same design.
Yeah,
It's
they
like,
still
they act
behave...
different.
Yeah, so you always have to be kind of aware of what's going on and ready to react. But I think finally we might have some, especially since changing positions, you've got more of an insight into what it's like to do locking all the time, and I've got more of an insight into what I need to actually worry about on the driving, rather than imagining what I've got to worry about.
Yeah. I'm still of the opinion that the harder job is whichever one I'm doing.
Well, I think driving is a breeze compared to locking. Mind you,
Well, as I'm the one doing the locking right now, I agree.
I need to start doing it because I'm not happy about how much more fit than me you are these days.
Oh, well, admittedly, that's how I used to feel too. Like, I knew, especially on some of the days when it was, and I mean, you haven't had to do this, but when it's hammering down rain and you're just absolutely miserable and freezing on the back, and you've got, I've had to have like goggles on to keep to just be able to continue to see because the water's coming at me at the wrong direction in the wind, and then especially when the lightning happens. and what I've always ended up being is like, and while I'm doing this, I am actively getting less fit, right? Like I know I am not only just not doing any exercise, the only part of my body that's getting any exercise is the Tillerman's shoulder thing. It's like there's this one muscle that's getting a little bit of extra oomph to it.
So why can't we work out how to split it rather than it being all or nothing? We just get into habits so easily.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's like you get a rhythm, right? And then
like now it just seems, for me to do the locking just seems like so much effort.
It's funny now. See, I'm enjoying it. I just
because you always felt you missed out on the locking, especially like when there's dogs walking by to talk to.
Well, I didn't like being inside the lock and knowing that there was some cute little fur ball up there and you were getting to say hello, and I'm just like down there going like, I'm cold and wet.
Yeah.
But,
when's she going to open the door?
Yeah, but see, now that I've been up in the
dog meeting position
in the breeze and everything, I'm more aware of the amount of, for one thing, George management.
Yeah.
That is involved.
Yeah, well, it's easier now because he wants to be on the boat, whereas 2 years ago when I was doing it all, he wanted to be on the towpath all the time. There is a lot of George management. Anyway, this is the cuts at Castleford.
Why does our brains do that? This is Castleford, where you had to ford to get to the castle. And then in Manchester is Castlefield, where there was a field beside a castle.
So something really sad is about to happen up here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I remember it, and I still feel guilty about it. So you see there's a man and a dog. Watch what happens.
I don't want to see a sad thing happen.
And I know if you'd have been driving, the outcome would have been different. Here we go.
Oh.
Because I know for a fact if you'd been driving, you'd have gone over.
That dog would have gotten the ball back.
Yes.
And you're just ignoring the poor puppy's little ball.
Well, to be fair, this is part 3 of a 3-part journey, and we've been going since like 6 a.m. and it's 4 p.m. and I'd have still gotten the ball.
I
know you would.
Yeah, there's no way I could. I'd have been like, stop everything! The Alsatian has lost its ball.
Oh look, we actually filmed an outro, so we can pass over to
ourselves.
Yeah.
Castleford.
That wasn't on the
Wasn't originally on the plan. I got up at 6 o'clock this morning, and it's almost 4 o'clock now. Been a long day. Not the longest day.
Actually.
Could be a longer day.
But I think if you told me last night that we were coming to Castleford, I would have been like, no, Michael. But when we got to Selby so quickly, like so
it made
early,
sense to continue on.
I was like, let's go to Knottingley. And then I was like, well, if we go to Castleford, then we're only 4 hours from Leeds tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it did make sense. And
It does make sense. Tomorrow in the weather, because we are, well, last I checked, I'm just checking now. But yesterday it was given to be a fairly wet day tomorrow. And as of right now, yes, indeed.
Fairly wet.
Fairly wet.
But 4 hours in the wet is not as bad as 7 hours in the wet. So.
Yeah. So, hopefully the weather gods and the chicken gizzards don't choose the wrong 4 hours. And only the wrong 4 hours.
They probably will. But yeah, we didn't fancy Selby again, and we definitely didn't fancy Knottingley again.
No.
But we do fancy Leeds, so.
Yeah. So we'll be in Leeds tomorrow. And we'll finally get to see Leeds open because, we saw nothing. We were sitting outside of a bunch of closed museums and closed things and everything kind of non-functional.
And
so actually being able to see Leeds will be nice.
It was back in the really scary times as well, when things had opened up but not properly, and no vaccines, and weird.
Yeah, it's a lot less scary now because we've just all forgotten that it's still happening.
But it was weird going past Ferry Bridge, when big chimneys and
the whole power station's been dismantled.
I remember it being fascinating the last time we went, because you could really see like the
big cooling towers and everything. It's all gone.
Yeah,
well, not all gone. I mean, there's obviously something that's been redone as a core of
and there was,
more efficient system of power generation and everything. But there
was still lots of infrastructure in terms of like loading boats and stuff, and
now there's just a channel that has these signs at the end that says warning overhead hazard, and it's like, no, there isn't. You guys removed all that. But yeah.
Well, to think we were in York yesterday, we were in Naburn this morning. We've come a long way.
We have.
It was a very good day.
We're at the place where the castle fords. So
I always get Castleford and Castlefield mixed up.
Castlefield. I always just think of it as, for some reason, being a very big 90-degree turn.
Well, it is.
Which I'll remember tomorrow. Like, oh yeah, right, this is a really big 90-degree turn.
Lock, which is a flood lock, but it's like a triangle shape, and it's massive.
Yeah.
And when we did it the first time, I was like,
what is this?
How does this work?
Yeah.
But Michael is probably going to go into Castleford, do some groceries.
Yeah. Got to do a grocery shop. Got to get some miscellaneous stuffs. So it's about a 20-minute walk to an Asda. No, Aldi. I always get those wrong. I don't know how I always get those wrong.
Well, I think you have been learning. But
I've been trying to learn, but I still get them wrong. Anyway, I'll take a bit of walk into town after my phone call, and hopefully by the time I get back, the boat will have warmed up a bit.
I'll be asleep.
You'll be asleep.
Get
the fire lit.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I've got to put on some waterproof shoes, not waterproof shoes, waterproof socks, because the ground is not so much with the dry.
I found it got warmer. Like I found the first bit of the day much colder. No, you're just cold all day.
Yeah.
All right.
The guy that was on the wide beam that was going out with us this morning, he was like, it's not too cold. And I was just like, it's not California. It's too cold.
All right, that's the end of the video.
Okay. This is the second of the videos that we made today?
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's actually the third, because we did a talking at the tiller.
Oh, yeah.
And we did a real time. So I've made like 5 videos today.
Wow. And George has spent the entire time just wanting to get off and chew grass, which is what he's doing right now.
Yeah.
He's a grass-eating doggy right now. He's all like, that's a nice piece of grass, that is. You should have seen him earlier when you were inside cooking your tuna melt. He kept pushing that door open with his face, being like, when am I being let inside?
Oh, because I do usually share my sandwiches with
But he
him.
never wants to go inside,
No.
except for when you're cooking.
Yeah. All right.
Right. So, thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe to Minimalist Maximum Velocity for that talking at the tiller video we were talking about, and the real-time video that will show up at some point as well.
It's quite funny talking at the tiller. Like, my face actually hurt from laughing.
You shouldn't. The Britishisms, I will react.
Let's not start again.
Let's not start.
Let's do
Let's not do that again.
You find the Canadianisms and we'll do that one.
Yeah, rolling up the rim. That's the main one.